What's up, kids? I'm back, and today we're going to be reading some Ouija board stories. Now, before I start, I just want to make sure that you guys are not trying Ouija boards on your own. I don't want you guys to be playing with them unless you really know what you're doing, and even then, anything can happen. Ouija boards are risky, and they're not something to be messed around with. As I'm sure you already know, they can be pretty serious, and a lot of people who've had Ouija board experiences have not had fun with them, to say the least. And I just feel like our lives are better off not having any negative attachments. And even the risk of potentially having that is just not worth it. It's just not worth it, guys. So, without further ado, let me just begin. The title is My First Mistake Was Insulting It. My friend had mentioned that she had one, so I asked her to pull the board out so I could check it out. At first she said no, but then she agreed to do it as long as she didn't have to participate. After she set the board up, I asked, "Is there anyone here?" Nothing. So being a dumb teenager, I said, "If anything is here and not talking, you're a coward." The board was put away after that. Okay, I already see some flaws in the situation. I'm not saying that this didn't happen, but I'm saying this in terms of first of all, you still can be affected even if you're not using the board yourself. If you're in a room and other people are using it and there's a demonic presence or a negative energy, you can still be affected. From then forward, it doesn't matter if you touch the board, it doesn't matter if you're energetically part of it, spiritually part of the whole scenario. If you're there, you're basically putting your energy there. How can I explain this? If you're in the room while someone's using a Ouija board, you can be affected because your energy is still contributing to the whole scenario. So if you really don't want to be part of it, I would suggest literally just not being there at all. Just go home, get out, and just don't be part of it. Don't just say, "I'm not going to be part of it," because that doesn't mean anything to, other beings. It only means something to you. So I'm going to continue. Oh, also, you should always say goodbye. I don't know if they did say goodbye or if they just kind of washed over it, but you always have to say goodbye after you're done using a board or any type of thing that helps you communicate the other side. You should always say goodbye afterwards, or else you don't know what you could be letting out. You have to close off your session. It's when you talk on the phone, if you don't say goodbye, you feel like something is missing. You have to say goodbye because it's part of the whole closing the portal type situation. Okay, now I'm gonna really keep going, I promise. Fast forward to about a week later and have me sleeping upstairs on my couch. I wake up on a stereotypical stormy night, thunder and lightning, wind and rain, the works. I look around to see why I woke up and I couldn't see a thing, and I decided to try and fall back asleep. After laying there for about 30 seconds, I hear from downstairs, "Get the boy," in a very raspy, wispy voice. I open my eyes and listen. Nothing. I start to go back to sleep, and then I hear, "Get the boy!" It was much louder this time. Then my downstairs door slams shut. I freak the F out because nobody slept down there and we had no drafts. Pretty wild. The next one I'm going to read is called A Creepy Doll. I have a terrifying story about a Ouija board. I got a call from my cousin who said that he, his brother, his dad, and his best friend were using a Ouija in their basement. Prior to starting, they took a large porcelain doll out of the room because it was creepy and placed it in an adjacent room face down on a pile of towels. My cousin took a short break because the board was just spouting nonsense and he went to take a poo. His dad and brother and friend started asking the board questions without him. One of the questions was, who was in the other room? It just started spouting random numbers, and when my cousin came back to the room, his brother said that it wasn't working and that they were going to put it away, and he showed him the answer to the last question he asked, and he said, "Dude, that's my social security number." Then they started to talk to whatever started spewing out answers. It told my cousin he would die in the Air Force. At this point, they tell the entity they're communicating with to prove itself. It then spelled out the word doll, and they were like, WTF. They opened the door to check on the porcelain doll they had laid in the other room, and when they opened the door, the doll was standing up right in front of the door staring at them. Everyone freaked out and ran out of the house. His best friend burned the Ouija board, and I think he temporarily went nuts for a few months. My cousin, for some reason, then joined the Air Force and is on a base in Europe now. Can I just say, please don't burn it. Please don't burn your Ouija board. That's a bad idea. What you're supposed to do is, like, either bury the thing, I'm pretty sure you can bury it, or you, like, close off your entire session and you say goodbye to the board and then you throw it in running water. Like, the whole board, the case, everything. Also, another tip, never leave the planchette on the board face up, because something can find that and use it to escape the board, which is terrifying. So just don't do that. Make sure it's upside down, put a piece of paper under it, wrap it up with something, like, never leave it face on the normal side, like on the board if you, like, close it. Always have to close things off. Okay, let's go to the next one. I asked it how long I had to live. We all asked it a question that only the person asking would know the answer to. It would answer the questions. One question someone asked was, what was the name of the boat I went on a cruise on when I was 6? It answered. We played with this thing forever. We had cold spot experiences, and would place a candle where the cold spot was, and the candle would burn sideways, not straight up and down. One night, we all asked it how long we had left to live, and this is where it gets scary. Everybody asked, and they had 50, 60 plus years left. I go to ask, and it says 10. I ask, 10 years? And it says days. I pretty much poop a brick at this point. It said I was going to be killed in a car accident by a girl named Emma. We would ask it 3 days later, and it would say I had 7 days left. I asked it 2 days later. It said I would have 5 days left, and so on. I am freaking out at this point, carrying a Bible in my pocket and wearing a big cross. I finally tell my dad, and he doesn't believe me, so I made one out of a piece of paper and a CD to show him. It worked, and flipped out and told me I didn't have to go to school the day I was supposed to die. I didn't go to school, and nothing happened. That's a great example of how the choices that you make can actually alter your future. So when you go to a psychic, a medium, a tarot reader, and they tell you that something is going to happen, they're not saying, like, 100% this will happen to you no matter what. They're saying if you continue on the path that you are on now, this is what will most likely happen. But you can make the choice, and you can make decisions to do different things that would lead you to a different path, and therefore that thing that was supposed to happen to you will not happen. You just have to use it as an opportunity to review, first of all, your life choices, and second of all, just your actions in general. Like, if you know something is about to happen, you should be able to take precautions to assure whether that thing does happen or not. So, like, this person took action and said, like, that he didn't go to school, nothing happened, his dad said you can stay home. Like, he basically showed his dad what the situation was, and basically what I'm saying is trust your instincts, because he knew something was off. He knew he shouldn't have gone to school that day. He was able to take what was given to him and be like, okay, now I can do what I have to do to prevent that from happening. And that's really smart. That's what you should be doing. That's why we go to tarot readers and psychics, because we want to know what's going to happen in the future, and we want to know if we're on the right path. So this is just a surefire way to tell you. And I'm not saying that you should use a Ouija board. Like I said, please don't. It is not. It might be fun in the moment, but, like, I guarantee you'll get creeped out. Like, it's just not fun. It's just not a good time, and it's not worth whatever might happen afterwards. So, like, honestly, just don't even do it. Just read stories online like me, and that'll be that. Let's read another one. This one just says choked. I have no evidence, and I do not care if you don't believe me. I've used a Ouija board with results and let something into my home, and I've been physically assaulted by this entity, which is highly possible. It started out with that feeling like you're being watched, and doors closing, and footsteps on the hardwood when you think you're home alone, and progressed slowly into being kept awake at night by something shaking the bed or pulling off your covers, sometimes even whispering your name. The board would disappear for days on end, then show up in places you would never have put it. I became obsessed with it. Then it was a black mass in the corner of the room, or the silhouette of a man watching you from the doorway. After that, it escalated pretty quickly. I had my hair pulled, fingers pricked, scratched, choked, held down in my bed while this thing whispered in my ear what could have only been Latin. We had our house blessed, and now the bad thing hasn't shown back up. Just the normal occurrences now, but I will never play with one of those boards ever again. Yeah, that seems right. Okay, let's do one more. I can see you through the window. I was about 12 or 13, spending the night at a friend's house, goofing around with the Ouija board with him and his sister, and we were getting all sorts of gibberish, plus words spelled out, just kind of scaring ourselves for fun, not taking it very seriously when we got the message, "I can see you through the window," and then, "I can see you through his eyes," or something like that. There was a small window in the basement room where we were, and just the backyard and woods past the driveway visible through that window. We asked it more questions, and it said, "I'm under the car." So we managed to get up the nerve somehow and go out with a flashlight and peer under the car, and we saw a huge black stray cat which was hissing. We ran inside, freaking out, and at that exact moment the power failed and all the lights in the house went out. We just about actually pooed ourselves. A few minutes later, the power came back and we sat up till dawn that night, scared, and never played with the board ever again. That one wasn't too wild, but still really creepy. Okay, let's read one more. Figure eights. A girl brought her authentic Ouija board made out of maple straight from Salem. Ironically, she was very Catholic, but she loved her board. It was a very interesting few nights at the dorm with it, but I think the second night we were playing with it, and it was going slow, not much movement. I had my hand off the planchette because I still wasn't sure about the thing. Suddenly, it was like cold fingers grabbed into my shoulders ever so slightly, and this terrible feeling in the back of my mind just came to the surface. I looked at the board, and the planchette started moving in a demonic pattern. I think figure eights this time. I looked at the girl and said, "I have a bad feeling about that," in time for her to realize what was happening. She stopped the movement and bid the spirit goodbye. In that moment, the icy grip loosened and all was well. Everyone was like, "Whoa," when the girl explained that the figure eight meant that something was trying to get out of the board. This is common lore that goes with Ouija usage. That's really true, and honestly, a lot of times, every time that you see it starting to do the figure eight, most likely that's not like a spirit. Most likely that's like a dark energy, like a dark presence that you don't want to escape the board. So I would suggest clocking out a goodbye if that ever happens to you, if you decide to make the really stupid choice of using a board in the first place. So, another thing is, along with the figure eight, if it says that it's 0 years old, that also means that you're dealing with something most likely like dark, evil, because that means that it never lived. Like if you ask it how old it is and it says 0, it never lived, it never died, and it can't be killed, which means it's not of this earth, world, whatever we are living now. Okay, one more, last one, I swear. Okay. Max is always around. When I was about 14, my best friend had a sleepover birthday party. Being the silly girls we were, we decided to make a Ouija board to use, not really knowing any of the rules, like making it say goodbye. After an hour or so, I wandered off to read some tarot cards and watch the rest of The Exorcist with the other couple of girls who didn't want to communicate with spirits. Reading that last sentence, I sound like such a stereotype. I still use tarot cards, though, so I never grew out of this phase, it seems. I feel like tarot cards are, like, completely different. Like, you're not channeling whatever's around you. Like, when you're using tarot cards, you should be channeling, like, your higher self, your spirit guides, things like that. So it's not really, like, it's not as much of a gamble as of what you're communicating with, because you can only communicate through the cards, and you're limiting that communication to, like, the energy through the cards and stuff. And when you're using a board, you're actually using, like, yourself as like a vessel to kind of transfer the energy and move that planchette around. So it's like you are directly connecting your physical and emotional and energetic self to whatever is trying to communicate with you, which is why it's so scary when something is trying to get out, because it's so easy for it to just like get out and enter into you because you've already let that connection happen in the first place. Here's where it gets weird. After I left, the spirit talking to my friends changed, as in it switched to a different spirit altogether. His name was Max, and he was looking for me. I've never known a Max in my life. My friends yelled out what he was saying as it moved. I was writing them off as teasing me until he started giving them information about me that nobody at this party knew. Things about minor abuse I was facing and other little things. That freaked me right out. I begged for them to stop playing, even after Max tried to convince me that he wasn't trying to hurt me. My friends were awesome and stopped playing before I started crying, and I thought that was the end of it. The next time a Ouija board came out was the next year, and only one girl from the original party was among the group. We were baking a cake, so when the buzzer went off, she and I headed up to take it out of the oven. When we got back to the group, another girl turned to me and asked, "Who's Max?" Apparently he stuck around after that first time. If my friends wanted to use a Ouija board, they don't invite me over unless they want to speak to Max. He's always around me. A few times in my life, I've heard a voice call out my name. It usually makes me stop for a minute, no more. But at least twice, had I not stopped, I would have been in the path of a car going too fast to stop before it would have hit me. I strongly believe Max has stuck around to be helpful, but we had not pulled out that Ouija board, I would have never known about him. So like, I think that a lot of telltale signs that you're dealing with something positive or negative is how you're feeling. So this person felt really uncomfortable around this Max spirit, and that doesn't mean that it was a negative spirit, but your spirit guides and your angels and whoever accompanies you through your life spiritually, they will not do anything to scare you. And especially if you say to them, please don't do anything to scare me, I'm very uncomfortable and I don't know how I feel about, seeing things move, having different types of signs. And you can actually tell your guides how you would like them to communicate with you. So if you're using a board and something starts telling you like, I'm here for you, don't be scared, if you feel that discomfort in your like chest, in your throat, like you can feel that kind of like heaviness, most likely that's not something that wants to help you. And I would sort of like keep distance, and you can ask them to sort of stay away. And if they don't, then you're dealing with something that really doesn't want the best for you. So I guess that's all we have time for today. But if you liked watching this video and you want me to do more like this, please like and subscribe and tell me down below what you're thinking. On that note, I'll see you guys soon.